Well, it was a big day for the members of the LGBT community today. The Supreme Court was giving a verdict on the same-sex marriage, but it didn't turn out to be a good one. But we have a few members from the community, and let's speak to them and find out what is their thought on this entire verdict. Tom, I'll start with you first. What are your thoughts on today's verdict? Do you think it is a good one, or it still has some scope?
So firstly, being a citizenship of India, we warmly welcome the judgment, and also being a social activist, I would think that only it has been focused on the trans community. It is not focused on the entire LGBT community, because always recognizing the transgender community, it is not very important, because when we talk about the entire LGBT community, at least we have been filed a petition for same-sex marriage. At least they would have given a judgment for that same-sex marriage. At least they're at least 50-50. If they have given a judgment also, it is fine. But we have been filed for a same-sex marriage, but we got a number of things from it. Only it has been benefited for trans community, and some sorts of equal liberty we are getting it. But we will warmly welcome it. And this is the first time in India, at least, we were when we talk about 15 years back, not even a single word like homosexual or gay or ultrasexual or lesbian, the word was not being taken up to the parliament. But we are very proud that at least we took those words to the parliament, and our fights won't stop here. We will fight, and we will raise our voice for our community. We want an equal opportunity for the entire LGBT community. Let's hope for the best.
How do you differentiate from what she said, that it was more of a benefit for the transgender community but not for the rest of them? How would you justify that in this way?
So, in regards to that, it is more that they work within the ambit of the NASA judgment of 2014, which was another Supreme Court judgment, which granted people the right to self-identification. So what they've done is they've not really changed marriage at all. They've just said that because we recognize transgender men as men and because we recognize transgender women as women, they are now eligible to get married in the same laws that already exist for heterosexual people. Because the court very rightfully made a distinction between gender and sexuality, where they said that if you're a heterosexual transgender person, if you're a heterosexual transgender man or a heterosexual transgender woman, then the only law that applies to you is the same law that applies to heterosexual people across the country. So in that way, they have definitely made a huge step in terms of recognizing transgender men and women to be equal and equivalent in the eyes of the law to cisgender men and women. And while that is great, I think the bigger step now is to translate some of the other parts of the Constitution as well. For example, they invoked Article 19, the right to freedom, in the concept of the right of freedom of association and the right of freedom of movement, were particular things that were brought up in the judgment. They talked about Article 21, which has the right to life, the right to dignity, the right to privacy. All of those are components under Article 21. Right? We talk about Article 15 a lot, which is the right to non-discrimination. We talk about Article 14, which is equality before the law. Now, what we are saying in the context of all of these things is that these rights, when we talk about marriage, what we are asking for is not just the right to get married as an abstract thing. We are asking for it very much as a realization of these few rights. That if I have the right to, as an Indian citizen, I have the fundamental right to associate, to enter into a union, to form a partnership with any person of my choice. I have the right to co-parent. I have the right to adopt. I should have the right to decide how my inheritance is going to work. I should have the right to decide my medical proxy. All of these rights are given to heterosexual people by virtue of just being married. Now we are saying that either you let us marry, therefore giving us these rights as well, or if you don't want to let us marry, which is what the court has said, that they cannot interfere in the marriage part of it directly, because that is not a judicial, that is not part of the judicial ambit. That this is something for the legislature to decide. Now what we are saying is, ultimately what matters to us is getting these equal rights, is making sure that there is no discrimination between a heterosexual person or a homosexual person, or a transgender person or a cisgender person, in terms of the rights that we have access to.
Okay. It has also gone on to say that it cannot recognize same-sex marriages, and it also hasn't given them a space in the special marriage act, saying that India has worked a lot with regards to special marriage act, and giving the community that right would take all that effort away. How do you see that part of it?
I think what they said is marriage is not the end is a very strong statement, is because see, when it comes to marriage, they have not given us the legal right. But what Justice Chandrachud said, in a lot of points is where he said that adoption has to be given, but again it was disagreed. But what we feel is that, this is a step forward and the ball is back to the court. Is because we have to again go ahead and fight for our equal rights, civil rights and all of those things. But what our concern is when it goes to the parliament, there's not enough sensitization at the parliament level because we know what has happened. They have voted out saying that we cannot go ahead and recognize same-sex marriage. If that is the same thing which is going to happen again, I think what we will also be more interested in the committee which is going to be formed, how we can represent our community there, because it is very important for the committee to have LGBTQ people, so that we make them understand as to what is that we need and what is that we seek from them.
Okay. Also in 2020, I suppose the decriminalization had happened. Do you think, 2018, in the next 5 years, do you think it was too much of a time for the country to grasp the idea of giving rights to people? They've just decriminalized the entire thing. Do you think the country is still not ready to accept things in a larger context? Do you personally?
In this case, we tell yes, it is like kind of a thing, because like people we need, when Baba Sahib Ambedkar has written the Constitution of India, but we don't have an equal right till now. We want an equal liberty to live in this India, because being an Indian, discrimination is a little bit of more. So we want like all these things should not happen, and we want an equal liberty. We feel it.
They say that legal battles don't end faster. They always leave a loophole for you to make sure that you can fight it back again in the future. So do you think, what are the things that you can take out of this judgment for the future possible?
So the judgment, it provides a very strong basis for us to now be able to go to the government and to be able to say that, listen, during the hearings, you made it a point repeatedly to say that marriage is a legislative matter, that the legislation should decide it, that the judiciary cannot decide on marriage, etc., etc., etc. You said it again and again and again, and now the court has come back saying the exact same thing. However, the court, what they've done, which is my favorite part of this judgment, even though it does not explicitly grant us the rights that we were asking for, what they have done is that they've swiftly negated all of the propagandist and all of the sort of moralistic arguments that the government was making against giving us our rights, right? So this whole idea of us being urban elitists, this whole idea of queer marriage and queer lives being against the culture of India, against the morality, against the tradition of India, the court very clearly has stepped far, far away from that. And they've said that no, we are definitely asking for equal rights. We definitely do believe in equal rights for queer people. We do believe that everybody has the freedom and constitutionally has the right to enter into associations. Now it is just that the court by itself cannot enter into that foray of legislature. That while they believe that we should all have equal rights, the court can only go so far. And so now the court has done their bit. They've said that we have done our bit. Now it is up to the government to actually implement these sort of changes and to actually make sure that these changes happen on the ground. So I think that provides us with a very strong basis for us to be able to go to the government and say, okay, now we need our rights.
The very few interesting points he said how the government, how the court has made sure to sanitize the entire process, saying that a few things that the government had put across, saying that these are things that will make us take us back into this thing, and those are the things where the government has the court has debunked all of these things. Now you are fighting against a central government who is staunchly against the idea of homosexuality, who does not believe, who believes that it's not written in our Shastra. How do you believe you will be able to fight that especially?
So if we go back in times, homosexuality was always there in forms of Lord Ayyappa and then Ardhanareshwar and all of those things. When they talk about religion, they also have to acknowledge the fact that we always existed, right? So it is very contradictory when it comes to the government, because they want to believe in the religion but also not want to believe in what we are saying, because they say that we have mental health issues, we have these kind of issues, that is why we are making up stories. But it is always related to the history, and then I believe that they have to go back in the history and check what all these meant, because there was also a Mohini avatar which was taken by Krishna, and then there was, as I mentioned, that there was Ardhanareshwar, there was Lord Ayyappa, and this has some significance, right? They have to go refer to these and then come back to us saying that, okay, fine, these are the things that we said, and I think in a way they have to apologize to us, saying that, yeah, we did not acknowledge you, but we would want to learn more about you, understand more about you, is when, when the problem with the government is that they do not want to understand where we come from. They just want to go by what they know about us.
Like he said that they just want them to be acknowledged. But do you think, like right now the Supreme Court has passed it on to the legislature, to the parliament, and you clearly don't have a representation in the parliament. How do you think if this would be so difficult for you because you don't have representation, you don't have a lot of sympathizers also? How difficult will it be for you guys now?
Oh, it's going to be an uphill battle for sure, as it has always been working with this government. Working with, generally, in our experience, working with some of the other governments like Congress and some of the other state governments has been easier than working with the BJP. We saw this also very significantly when we were working on the Transgender Persons Act, which was passed in contravention to what most of the community wanted. There was not a single community consultant on that committee that prepared the Transgender Act. Many of us were against it, they didn't listen, they passed it anyway. And that is in fact the foremost challenge before us. How do we get our voices to be actually part of these decision making? The idea is that why are laws being made for us by people who neither understand us, who don't talk to us, who don't engage with us? How can they even know what are our realities? How can they hope to make adequate laws for us when our voices are not even there in the decision making process?
Your thought on that?
So we want community representative in the political spaces, like either you can take as a state-wise or you can take as a central-wise also, because like Anirudh has mentioned, working with Congress it is very easy, and working with BJP it was very difficult because they don't know about our community, and what our community is there, they don't have a proper guidelines also. So I would request the government from the state and the central also to take our LGBT community to the politics and or give them the space in the parliament to speak about our community.
At the end, how do you think the future is going to be? Bright like the flag that you guys carry, or are you going to see a lot of battles?
I think the future is very bleak because if we have these kind of representation, the government does not want to understand us. There's no representation at all from the community. I think it is going to be very, very hard for us because unless we get into the system, the government won't be able to understand us. The only thing that we want is representation from the community, and not just the trans community. There are many, many, many identities in the community. We have to make sure that we go ahead and put our voices there, saying that this is what the difference between a transgender person, a gay person, a lesbian is. Only then we can see brighter days, I believe.
Well, these were the members of the LGBT community who believe that it's not a win-win for them, but they're satisfied with the judgment as of now, and they also believe that the judgment leaves the scope for future changes, and it also brings a lot of hope for them with the fact that people in the future, the judiciary has at least recognized their existence, and they also believe that it's now time for the legislature to understand the differences that they are there within the community, and it also for them to recognize this, and they believe that they need legislative representation if the legislator has to pass this as a bill.